Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Game Changer Podcast. Here are your hosts, VicTori Belle and NateFNGreat.
Hello everyone, I'm NateFNGreat. Welcome to the Game Changer Podcast, or I will be formerly known as NateFNGreat, the man who apparently needs to give Sonic the Hedgehog the movie a chance. We'll see. We will see about that. And I'm being joined here by the one, the only, the fabulous VicTori Belle. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm a little more tired, but we're up early, we're doing it. We're going to be talking fun things, so
Hey, as long as you got your coffee, I think that's all that matters, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, the coffee is a big deal.
So, guys, we have been doing a 3-part series, doing a build-up to Endgame, talking about Endgame. Now we're going to be going into what happens next. Where does Marvel really go from here after everything that has happened, after all of the possible crossovers, after all the things that we saw after Tony passed away? What exactly could Marvel be doing next in Phase 4? Now, one thing that we definitely did get a preview of is the fact that it seems like Phase 4 is going to have a different face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that being Spider-Man. Case in point, earlier this week we had the release of the new Spider-Man Far From Home trailer, and honestly, it definitely does ask a lot of questions, and it also kind of makes you think, okay, so this is opening a lot of different possibilities. For the trailer itself, it does contain Endgame spoilers, so if you have not seen it, and if you have not seen the movie yet, definitely fast forward just a little bit, because we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that happened during the trailer. Also, this kind of sparks a debate, which I'm going to be getting into in just a minute. So basically, the Far From Home trailer talks about how Spider-Man has definitely been dealing with the after effects of Endgame, mainly the fact of losing somebody who was kind of a father figure to him in Tony Stark. And it does talk a bit about Nick Fury coming up to find Spider-Man, have him go into an alternate universe to help Mysterion with battling the elements, of course, you guys know as Aquaman, Sandman, and Fireman, as they've definitely hinted at in previous teaser trailers as well as official trailers. So this is going to be very interesting. I am looking forward to this, but I do want to discuss this deal because one of my co-hosts, Agent Cooper, Max Beatty, he actually went on record to basically talk a bit about his thoughts as well as his opinions on the Far From Home trailer. And he hits the fact that, hey, shouldn't there be more, effects from Endgame other than the fact that, obviously Spider-Man is affected by Tony Stark. And apparently he's been getting a lot of backlash from that. Basically, fans have been saying that, he's asking too much from the Marvel people. He's got these fan theories that are going on. They're just that. They're just fan theories. And I'm going to definitely say that this is one of the few times where I'm disappointed to be a Marvel fan and also kind of pissed off that there are still people that are that petty to not respect an opinion, because here's the thing about this. I actually do agree with Cooper's basic analysis where he says there should be more effects. But it's one of those things where it's like we only have seen this trailer. It's not going to reveal everything that's happened. So maybe there's a chance that Far From Home does kind of deal with more of the after effects from Endgame. Obviously, maybe they've done a situation where they talked about, hey, S.H.I.E.L.D. has cleaned up everything that's happened within, the Endgame Infinity War situation. Because here's the thing about it. If a lot of people think that this is just a fan theory, if this is asking too much of a Marvel deal, you have to remember that it's a scientific provement that, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So that is my case in point when it comes to that. And it's one of those things that definitely does kind of support Agent Cooper's theory on, there should be more effects of that. Maybe there should be some more showing that, hey, there's people that have still been missing. There have been these people that are still affected by the deal. Because here's the thing about this: when Hulk did the snap, it seemed like the only people that they brought back were the people that were in the Avengers deal. But that could also change. That could have been something where we actually see, people who have been, forgotten for, years have finally come back, and they've, have to live their lives basically, which was like 5 years later from what they had before. So, honestly, who knows? Spider-Man Far From Home could probably answer that question. In all honesty, maybe it won't. At this point, it's just one of those situations where we have to just wait and see what the movie has to offer. But again, I support where Agent Cooper and Max is coming from, and I just wish that people were not just so petty and so overreactive on just certain theories and certain opinions when it comes to a huge movie like Endgame. That's just my thoughts on that. Your thoughts, Victory Bell?
Reaction to his him talking about the movie?
Well, I mean, mainly just, I guess, your thoughts on people still kind of getting very touchy and hypersensitive about, when they even bring stuff up like that, where somebody might say, okay, well, where are the after effects of, this monumental movie? And people are just saying, well, that's asking too much from Marvel, period.
I mean, I would say that already judging the movie of not having After Effects seems kind of crazy because it's just a trailer. I definitely seemed to me that they were showing a lot of After Effects, especially when we meet Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who, what did you call him? What's his name again?
Mysterion.
Oh,
no. Mysterion,
yeah, sorry, we have a poor connection right now, so that's not good. It's like going in and out, so it's hard for me to hear some of the things you were saying. Mysterion, when we meet him in the trailer, we automatically get this whole new theory of there are people on different worlds, and they were affected by the snap too. So, that's a huge thing, that now there's a guy from another Earth on our Earth. So Marvel has decided to open up the Earth's numbering system that we all love and get super confused by. And so that's interesting. That's definitely an effect from the snap, is that there's going to be multiple universes, multiple Earths. I mean, it looked like Tony was affected. They only really had time in the trailer to show us Peter Parker's effects. I mean, I bet there's going to be a lot of explanation. I would expect a lot of explanation. And if they don't have it, then I would be like, oh, I'm going to be upset that they didn't explain more. But in general, it sounds like they need someone to step up because there's a lot of effects. Because how Fury was so consistently chasing after Peter and chasing after him all the way to London. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. And so there's a lot of, things that are popping up that are like, why does Peter have Tony's glasses? Is Tony taking on the Iron Man, or is Peter taking on the Iron Man role now too? Will he have a suit that is a little more Iron Man-esque versus just being Spider-Man? And we saw a lot of, his spider suit does have a lot of robots. It does have, he used the kill mode again we saw in the trailer. So I think there are a lot of effects. I just don't think in a trailer that you get a minute to show us why we should go see the movie. They have to show the effects of humanity. So I think he was just premature on his judgments.
It is a possibility. But yeah, honestly, I'm looking forward to the Spider-Man Far From Home movie, regardless of what a lot of people have possibly been saying. I think there's other people that are excited to see this because we do get, Mysterion. We do get the elements. We do get more people, and it does open up to a possibility of one of the movies that I will be talking about later on in the show. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this movie plays out. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if this is supposed to start Phase 4 or if this is the end of Phase 3. But either way, I think that this is the movie that's going to transition into the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. But we'll get to that in just a bit. So, VictoriBelle, what else have you have for us to talk about?
I think it was a pretty good and fun announcement that we had Chris Hemsworth confirmed for signing for 5 more movies. Being someone who has not necessarily liked Thor, not because of Chris Hemsworth, but because of the writing, and then all of a sudden them chucking Thor Ragnarok at us, it flipped the switch for, I think, the fans and for the actor. I know he didn't want to do more Thor movies at first because he thought he didn't really like the character, he didn't like portraying him, and once Thor Ragnarok happened, he was psyched, and it's like, oh no, this is the time that I end. Like, everyone else is ending. Like, do I end too? And I know that we got him already talking about, like, he would love to play Thor until Marvel doesn't have him before, but now we got the confirmation that he has signed for 5 more movies, including Thor 4 and, as we all kind of expected, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, when we saw Thor board the ship with, Chris Pratt and all them, and all that humor that was happening. He's definitely going to be in the 3rd movie, and, I mean, that just sounds super fun to me.
Yeah, the chemistry between Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth is honestly absolutely hilarious. Whether they had their beef in Infinity War, and then of course we have the humorous moments at the end of Endgame, it definitely does kind of create for something that could be one of the best Marvel movies that they have, entertainment-wise, I would say. And also, it would be kind of funny if the main title actually features what Thor basically said at the end of the movie, where he calls it the Asgardians of the Galaxy, where it would just be one of those things where it'd be kind of funny just to see the main title and then maybe like a spray painted Asgardian put on there. Just one of those situations where it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I don't know. I think maybe some people would take offense to that because it's like, oh, well, he's taken over for the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, no, it's just a harmless joke. Just grow up. Come on. We already kind of had that assumption when he made the joke at the end of Endgame, and it is going to be very interesting to see what kind of more conflicts and what kind of, plans we could have for, Chris Hemsworth as Thor. You definitely hit the fact that, Thor 1 and 2, not exactly one of our favorite and most talked about movies, but yep, once Thor Ragnarok hit, everybody's just having fun. And I think the thing about it is that you can definitely tell with Chris Hemsworth when he plays Thor in the early on, you can definitely tell that he's just kind of contained. He's definitely very just, he's supposed to be bring out the energy when he needs to, but also just be very dignified and just be absolutely, completely calm and collective. But then once we go into, Ragnarok, then we go into Infinity War and Endgame, you definitely do see him actually having a bit more energy to him. It seemed like he definitely was more comfortable playing those, that side of Thor. So that's going to be one of those things I'm looking forward to. And hey, more possibilities and more chances we're probably going to get Dad Bod Thor. Love it.
Yeah, I'm just stoked about it. I'm very happy. I agree with a lot of things you said there. I think that was good. Who knows? We'll probably get the other Thor back soon because he was broken. But I mean, if we don't, that'll be funny. But I don't know how much more humor we can get about Dad Bod Thor.
It's kind of weird. I want to actually just touch on this side note here that I kind of noticed is that it'd be kind of there's been all these memes and all these pictures of Thor having that bod and basically saying he is worthy. I feel like it's going to be one of those weird things where it might have the same effect on people as Drax did on people who are of special needs and special. I think I'm trying to remember who he was related to. I think there were kids that had autism that could relate to Drax and kind of be like, hey, we have a superhero that kind of relates to us. This is cool. So it's kind of one of those things where maybe it's another relatability thing with Chris Hemsworth, where it's like, hey, you don't always have to be, chiseled out of stone and made look like granite to be worthy. No, you just have to have like the heart and have the spirit to be worthy. So that's just kind of one of those things. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but it's just one of those things where it's like, as a guy who's fluffy, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, Thor looks awesome. He is worthy. I am fluffy. I am worthy. So.
No, that's awesome. That's great.
All right. So the next thing that we talk about is one of the things that will be coming out for Endgame when it comes out, on DVD, Blu-ray, however you want to. For some of us, we choose Vudu, but since we don't have Wi-Fi, unfortunately, we'll have to borrow it from a certain store. That's a different story for a different time. So the Endgame Director's Cut is actually going to feature a longer final battle from what rumors have been stating. And honestly, it would be very interesting to see, what people's thoughts are going to be about that. Because there's probably some people that are like, no, it was the perfect enough battle. But there's always that one person, or at least that small group of people that are like, this was a really awesome battle, but I kind of wanted to see more. I kind of wanted to see, maybe Valkyrie do something more. Maybe they wanted to see Gamora and Nebula teaming up in the final battle. Maybe something like that. And they might get that chance with the director's cut of this. I'm looking forward to seeing what gets added with this. But, I'm one of those people that's pretty content with what we got in the movie theater. So it's going to be probably one of those extra things where it's like, oh, okay, this would have been kind of cool to have. Or there'll be one of those things where, like, okay, I understand why they cut this. Because it does take away from what goes on. And who knows, maybe we'll get another person who plays Hot Potato with the gauntlets. Maybe it goes off to, who would be a really good? Maybe it goes off to Thor. Maybe it goes off to Hulk. Who knows? But there's just a lot of possibilities that goes into this director's cut. But I'm really interested in seeing what happens. I mean, when we had Avatar, it was already a long enough movie as is, and then they had the extras put onto it, which went from, I think a 3-hour movie to, a 6-hour movie, if I'm not mistaken. So, I know. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm not really thrilled about watching that for 3 hours. I don't think I could do a whole another 3. I'm sorry. I watched 9 hours of Endgame. I think that it was a great 9 hours. I'm not going to lie. I even got on record to say it was better than watching WrestleMania, which was 7 hours long. I'm sorry. I loved a lot of the stuff that happened there. I know. Coming from a wrestling fan, I'm sorry. But watching Endgame, I felt like it was very fulfilling. As a Marvel fan, it definitely hit every single part of it. But, I look at WrestleMania, I think, okay, there's some moments that were really good. There were some moments that were very memorable. I did not cry during WrestleMania, so for those of you that want to call me heartless, go ahead. It just didn't affect me as much. But yeah, like I said, Endgame has made me cry 3 times, so yeah, you can kind of see where I'm siding more with Endgame than with WrestleMania. But alright, so let me ask this, Victory Bell. So other than the longer final battle that is a possibility for the director's cut, what do you see probably coming out of that director's cut? Or what are some things that you would like to see come out of that director's cut?
I think it would be really cool if the directors sit down and explain either the potholes that people have been bringing up, or kind of explain like the fan theories that were confirmed within this. Because I know one from Rob Bury that was interesting. He said that he saw in an interview that the Russo brothers sat down and explained that one of the key reasons of why this scenario was 1 in the 14,000,000 that Doctor Strange viewed was the rat going over the buttons in the van that let Scott Lang out.
Oh.
So they were explaining on what the key details were for them and what they mean. So if they included some of that, I think people would love that video content. I think we would love, obviously we're going to love the bloopers. There are a ton of them. And maybe just having that tribute, maybe a whole thing of all the Stan Lee, cameos would be super cool. But we don't know what we'll get, but those are things that I would truly value, and I would definitely spend some extra money if they were throwing those things in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think when you hit tributes, one of the things that, I just thought of that would be kind of cool is if they actually did kind of a tribute to, of course, they do hit it on the end credits scenes, a tribute to the, original Avengers, the people who kind of paved the way for that deal. Maybe they could do, just like a deal where they have everybody, maybe sitting down, basically talking about, hey, when we sat down and we read for the first time, maybe they had like an instant connection, or maybe there was a deal where it was like, okay, we didn't like, we didn't like each other to start off, but then as we got on, it kind of felt like, we were part of a family. Just, something like that. I think it'd be kind of cool to have that kind of feature where you kind of see where things have come, from the 2012, Avengers, and kind of seeing how it builds up to what we got here with Avengers Endgame. And, of course, it would be really cool to have a great tribute for Robert Downey Jr. as well as Chris Evans, and even like I could definitely see like an emotional send-off for Scarlett Johansson, for her character, because again, it was one of those characters we kind of thought was going to be taken out, but the way that she went out was probably the most unexpected ways that we were ever thinking.
Oh yeah. A lot of people were talking about that they were kind of expecting the other way, and they didn't know if there's going to be another timeline where she lives, and all that jazz, which, again, to me, as much as that's a fun, like all these theories and stuff, I do like some sort of control to the chaos, and opening up worlds is another way to just never have a solid storyline.
Right.
Because that's why the comic books did it. They killed people, and then on other worlds they weren't dead. Or on other worlds, like Spider-Man. Spider-Man has Miles Morales, who's on a different world. Correct?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. Sorry, it's such a slow, like, your responses to my responses. I'm like, is he frozen? And so it's just, as much as it's fun, it also, to me, just, like, confuses the fans a little, especially the fans that aren't very literate in the comic book world, because that's when you go from the entertainment factor that all of these movies were bringing back to the algorithms and theories and nerddom that they literally derive from. And not that I don't appreciate all the algorithms and all the different time zones and manipulations they can do. I think that they might lose some of the entertainment quality if they really dive back into the the deep nerddoms. So I hope they don't do that. I hope they try to, maybe there's two worlds. I would love just two.
Well, you never really know. I mean, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse definitely opened up the fact that there were universes, so...
Right, but that's Sony. That's not part of Marvel's world, but, yes, we 110% know if we follow comic book storylines, there are not just two worlds. I'm hoping in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they decide to maybe just stick with two.
Well...
Because, that also brings up the ability, which I don't think we really talked about, but, if Mysterion is being this good doer, does that mean the Dark Avengers are here? Yeah. Everybody's talked about it. People have been flirting with the idea that on his planet, if he's doing the good stuff, and then he gets here and he's like, wait a second, I'm not supposed to be doing the good stuff. Does that mean the Avengers are evil on his world? And that just brings up a whole nother plethora of things that could happen, which, do I like the Dark Avengers? I love it. I love when we have our favorite characters with totally different personalities. But again, I just want one world. Just like, or like one other world. Like, ooh, good world? Ooh, bad world. Okay, good. Please don't give me 75,000. I will get confused.
We're seeing a different side of Victory Bell here on the Game Changer. Honestly, I'm just waiting for you to break out the nerdy kind of glasses and just start randomly doing like things from a thesaurus, just being like, oh, well, the algorithm matches this matches this and everything in between. I really want to see that now. If you ever were to do like a modeling gig and they have you play like the nerdy kind of person, I kind of would be into that. It's like, you know what? I call this and I'm loving it. Just like the nerd, having like the
sorry,
nerdy.
I was frozen. I was frozen for a while, so I didn't hear anything you just said.
Well, for those that didn't listen to me the first time, I was saying that, using the words like algorithm and just being all scientific, I could see you definitely in like a future modeling gig, breaking out like a nerdy side where you have the glasses and you have the little notepad, stuff like that. It's one of those things where it's like, you know what, if she does this, I'm going to say I called it, but at the same time, I'm loving every minute of it.
Nice, I could definitely do that.
Oh, man. Guys, if you want this to happen, please go to her Facebook fan page, comment on this, say we want nerdy Victory Bell. Hashtag nerdy Victory Bell. There we go. Oh, man. And you know that I'm going to do that as soon as we're done with the show. I'm literally just going to be like, hashtag nerdy Victory Bell. Let's get this going. How many
That's
people?
hilarious.
All right. So, obviously, there's more for us to talk about when it comes to, what happens next for Endgame. And, Victory Bell, what else is there that they could do, since the Endgame is kind of, the end game of the Phase 3?
We definitely both talked about the Loki series popping up. That is going to be on Disney Plus, which we all kind of know that Loki, or Disney Plus, sorry, I said Plus. That Loki possibly escaped. We don't know really what happened to him since he took the Tesseract in one of the pre-snap events. So is he still alive? Is he not? What's going on? Well, obviously he is alive. And they get a little bit of a plot summary here, that it's a twist, that Loki's still going. He's not out of it. The God of Mischief might have died at Thanos, but there's a solo television series going on full stream with Rick and Morty's writer at the helm. Oh my gosh. This is the first time I'm reading that.
Oh,
Rick and
boy.
Morty's writer is going to be the writer of this. This is going to be crazy and hilarious. And just awful. As in, like, it's just not going to be a nice series. It's going to be a series that will do things that you're like, oh my gosh, they let that happen? But it does seem like Tom Hiddleston was definitely all for this. I don't think he was done being Loki. I don't think people were done of him being Loki. But it looks like they're definitely going forward with this. We hope that some people will show up in the show. They think that the series is going to focus on Scarlet Witch, her robotic Paramount Vision, and maybe there'll be team-ups between Captain America's two sidekicks, the Winter Soldier and Falcon, who we all know, the Falcon being the new Captain America coming up. So we hope to see them in this 6 to 8 episode long series, really revolving around Loki, which, what I would say, guys, is I would expect this, since it is a very short series, I would expect movie quality from this. I would think that it's going to almost be in replace of having a Loki movie. This is going to be a Loki series so that they could put it on their new, streaming service and really just give it a reason to be bought, and not having one of these ginormous Marvel movies going on the big screen, but instead being released fully as a mini instead of a movie is a really smart way. Let's be real. When this comes out, it's going to hold some value within the Marvel Universe, so if you don't see it, you're missing out. So, it looks like we all have to get Disney Plus now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those marketing strategies that they'll use, just like DC Universe is trying to get people more interested into what their series are creating. Disney Plus is going to try to do the same thing. I'm looking forward to seeing this series. Like you said, Tom Hiddleston's back, and you mentioned the possibility of a couple other people making those cameos, making those appearances on the series. That definitely will give it a little bit more credibility. And I think, having the Rick and Morty writer being a part of this series will definitely give it, maybe the darker humor that Disney is not quite, used to. And especially they're going to have to get used to that, especially if they bring, another Deadpool movie into the fray. Because since they did buy out, Fox, they got Deadpool, they got X-Men, they got to start opening the envelope a little bit and, tearing into it. They gotta start taking risks. And maybe this is going to be like a precursor of what's to come when it comes to these, future movies, and then possibly allowing certain Marvel movies getting that rated R feel to them. But who knows at this point? I don't see, Loki going rated R, but I definitely do see a lot more of, darker comedy going into that, because we've seen Loki in a lot of his movies. He definitely has a very interesting sort of sense of humor. So to kind of have him, have more, maybe more, freelance, more chance to actually get away with more stuff, that's going to probably make this a little bit more interesting. Who knows? I'm very interested in seeing what happens with this.
Oh, yeah. And it'll be great to see how Loki interacts with other characters. We really don't get a chance to see Loki interact with anyone besides Thor in almost all of the movies. Like, you get to see him with his mom a tad bit, but in general, his scenes are always with Thor, or he's doing something awful. So we don't really get to see interaction. We see fighting and verbal conflict. Just seeing him interact with some of these other characters will be very interesting, and I think it'll be worth seeing. And especially I just can't believe, I'm so glad that I read this article and saw the Rick and Morty. Oh my gosh, this is just more exciting for me now. I love Rick and Morty. It is such dry yet smart humor that you have to continuously watch, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's funnier and funnier because I'm getting it more and more, where they're trying to take my mind. And speaking of multiple universes, I mean, if we're throwing in the multiple universes, then I guess Rick and Morty might even hold a bigger amount of universes than the Marvel and DC universes. So I think that's hilarious. I would love for if it's the voice of Rick and Morty, because he's half of the writers. If it's the guy who also voices Rick and Morty, I would love for him to have like a little animated character, or him actually be in it and just do these voices. That it would be hilarious for me. I would love it.
We get the Rick and Morty crossover with Marvel. Everybody's been asking for that, and now we're getting it.
That would be awesome.
All right, guys, we're going to take a little quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to continue the discussion of where does Marvel Endgame go from here. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm NateFNGreat. You know what's really fun, you guys, is just spending some time creating wrestling moments, whether it's being in the crowd, cutting promos, or just really kind of beating each other up with a chair or a trash can. Well, let's just say that there's a safer way to doing that without using the actual chair or a trash can. Go over to Great Minds Revolution Incorporated. My buddy Kurt has actually created a very safe and fun way to be a wrestling fan without the necessary lawsuits of basically beating each other up with real stuff. He has an inflatable chair that is really fun to just whack around, and it could also double as a little floaty for a pool. He also has the inflatable trash can, which, you guys, is really awesome because let's say maybe you don't want to use it for wrestling matches. You could use it at your barbecue, your next big tailgate party, whatever you could think of. Great Minds Revolution, Inc. They do a great job on making wrestling fun again. Proud friends of the Game Changer.
You're listening to the Game Changer Podcast here on Spreaker.com.
Yes, guys, you can definitely listen into the Game Changer Podcast on Spreaker.com as well as on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And I think we're actually going to have a new one coming up pretty soon. We might be available also on Google Podcast. So that's going to be pretty awesome to have another format for us to discuss these opinions about. But also, you guys, definitely tune into the episode of Pro Talk Wrestling this week because I do have a major announcement that is definitely going to be game-changing, to say the least. So that'll be for a later time. All right, so obviously when we talk about what happens after Endgame, one question that everybody's always going to have is, what movies are we going to get after Endgame happens? Well, we already have one answer to that, and that, of course, being Spider-Man Far From Home. But they actually did release a few dates for people to consider going into 2022. So what they have for release dates are, we have one coming out on May 1st, as well as November 6th next year. In 2021, we have February 12th, May 7th, and November 5th. And then in 2022, we have February 18th, May 6th, and July 29th. So that's about 8 movies in the next 2 years, and we can guarantee that they're probably not going to tie into each other. So I will also kind of tie into the fact that there were some possibilities that Marvel kind of threw out as far as what movies are probably going to be expected over the next few years for Phase 4. So here's the list that I have here so far. So we have a Black Widow prequel that could possibly be happening, and honestly, Black Widow deserves her own movie after that performance at Endgame. We have the Eternals, Inhuman, Doctor Strange, Baron Mordo, and I think the title kind of explains itself there. Shang-Chi, Black Panther 2, Guardians, or in this case, Asgardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, Ant-Man 3, Captain Marvel 2, The Silver Surfer, Nova, Power Pack, Fantastic Four, hopefully it's a good reboot, unlike the last one that we just had, Spider-Man Secret Wars, and one thing that my co-host definitely hinted at is Dark Avengers, which I think might be the next big quote-unquote Avengers movie that we have, even though they've said, oh, there's not going to be any more Avengers movies after this one. Well, you kind of have Avengers in the name, so it's up for debate at this point. Like I said, Black Widow, she deserves her own prequel at this point. I would even watch it, even if it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, it didn't really add anything onto it. If it gives her a backstory, I'm okay with this. And it kind of is one of those situations where now, they announced this in 2014. So if they announced it then, that should have been like the precursor to like, okay, they're giving her a prequel. Why? Is she going to die in Endgame? I don't know. Maybe I'm diving a little too deep into that. Like I said, Doctor Strange, Baron Mordo, I think it's definitely going to hint on the fact that, Mordo has, turned his back on Doctor Strange and he will be joining up with Dormammu. I think that's how you kind of do that one. We kind of talked a bit about Guardians of the Galaxy. Black Panther 2, I'm leaving that up for debate. It's one of those things where it's like, I didn't know what to expect with the first one. I loved the first one. I'm leaving the second one alone. I have no idea what could possibly happen. Of course, Silver Surfer, Fantastic Four. We did get a couple of those movies years ago, but we haven't really heard from them since, so this could be that small indicator that they are getting those deals from Sony, from Fox. But the one that kind of stood out to me in this one is Spider-Man Secret Wars. Now, I've been a fan of these Spider-Man animated series, and I do remember the Secret Wars taking place. Which ones they were, I was trying to remember exactly which ones they were. It was either when Spider-Man had, teamed up with certain heroes and villains from, past. They brought in people from the X-Men era. Or it could be one of those situations where we see the multiple Spider-Man deal. Now, obviously, we already got that with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but it's going to be interesting to see if they try to pull that off in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, from what I remember for that one, they had brought in, like the Scarlet Spider. They brought in Spider-Man that had, like, Dr. Otto Octavius' technology. They had a Spider-Man who definitely battled with the spider DNA that was infused with him, and it actually created for a very awesome series of episodes. As well as just a regular person dressed up as Spider-Man. I don't know. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, we have all of these crazy Spider-Man of other universes, but now we got this random guy that's just here. What the heck? I mean, you might as well just have Seth Rogen play that Spider-Man if that's the case. I'm sorry. I'm not going to knock on Seth Rogen that much. I did do a review on what was it? The Long Shot, which definitely, guys, check that out on Patreon before I unleash it up on YouTube. Yeah, it's just going to be one of those things that are going to be very interesting. This long list of movies that are possibilities, but only 8 of them are probably going to happen. It definitely does leave a lot to the imagination of what the hell we're going to probably get going into the next phase that we have coming up here.
Yeah, no, I mean, all those movies sound pretty good to me. You already know I'm not that into the whole Black Widow movie prequel. I don't care about prequels. I'm so done with them. I feel like it's literally just an excuse to, like, resolve, like, some plot holes that they created themselves. Like, oh wait, let's explain this by making a prequel movie. And I'm like, please don't. I mean, I most likely will see it, but killing off Black Widow was totally fine with me. Her character ran its course. Her character was the most important part of getting the Soul Stone, and I think that gives her a great way to go out. And I don't need any more.
I could tell. I'm just looking at your facial reactions. It's like you're done with Black Widow, period, after Endgame.
Well, she just doesn't have that much left to offer. I don't want a spy movie. I want a superhero movie. She's a spy. Like a spy and just a special agent. If I want that, I will turn on, what... I'm trying to remember Get Smart or something, like a goofy spy movie, or like Man from U.N.C.L.E., like something like that. That's what I'll watch because those are the spy movies I want to watch. Or even like James Bond. That reminds me more of spy movies and stuff. I don't want a spy when I could have a superhero. Like, that's the fun part about the Marvel Universe. So if you give me a Black Widow movie and there's no superhero, I'm done. I don't want to watch it. She better be with a superhero of some sort, or why is it even existing? Which, that's the sad part about her. That's why I don't want a Black Widow movie, is because I don't think that character is strong enough to support a bad situation. Why are we going with Black Widow, guys? There's no one else. Oh man, we're gonna die. We are gonna die. This is how we die. It's just gonna be such an anticlimactic movie, because she's gonna verse some sort of, are we gonna do Nazis again? Oh, we're gonna do the SSR, probably USSR. She's gonna verse a communist. Oh no, here she comes. Her versus a guy with political power. How is she gonna do it? I don't know. It just seems dumb to me.
Man, I think we finally found the thing that probably triggers you the most. For me, it's Matthew Broderick. For you, it's just the idea of a prequel Black Widow movie.
It's not the fact that, it's not like I'm super hating on Black Widow. I liked her in the Avengers. I liked her role in all of these little movies because she had a great role. I don't think she's a star character that needs her own movie, and I definitely don't need a movie that is predating the snap now. I want more story. I don't want, let's go back before the snap and have another adventure before the... no, Captain Marvel was kind of annoying with that. Like, I liked the movie, but just having to, okay, wait, remember, nothing else has happened. There are no superheroes but her right now. Okay, reprogram brain to Marvel Universe's ideas. And you watch the movie, and I had a lot of people ask me, do I need to go see Captain Marvel before I see Endgame? And I was like, no, I guess you don't need to. Because as long as you know that she exists, you're good. And that was very interesting to me. And that just brings me more talk about her in general, but we don't really have time to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about people are not as satisfied with Captain Marvel as I think Disney thought they would be.
Fair enough. But we are reaching that point where it is going to be the end of the show, but not before we get into a, I guess, final discussion or final debate. So, Victory Bell, what have you have us to close off the episode with?
I think just to close off the episode, I mean, we're talking about what Marvel's going to do, what it's supposed to do, what we want from Marvel in the future. And I think one thing that everybody's really chatting about and it's really getting people excited is who's the next major villain. Like, we've had Thanos for probably maybe 6 movies. I could be wrong. I'm just, throwing this number out in my head. Thanos has kind of been hovering over us for a while now. I guess since Guardians of the Galaxy 1. So there probably is a lot more. So we're trying to think of who's the next villain, and a big idea that everybody has. Obviously, there are many ideas, but one of the ideas that really connects already with the universe, who's somebody who is already here, is Red Skull, which does he have some sort of cosmic universe powers now because he's been guarding the Soul Stone, and apparently the Soul Stone has been destroyed in this universe now? That would be the only way that I think I could imagine Red Skull being a new hyper villain. But it's just a very interesting. I know a lot of people are wanting Dr. Doom, who is definitely going to be involved in these movies if we have Silver Surfer and we have Fantastic Four. We already know we're going to have a Dr. Doom. But there's a ton of guys that are up for debate, but it's more of, do you want a guy that is off planet, or do we want to have our villain be on planet and have a little more reasonable battle on Earth versus let's cross the universe again?
Yeah. No, it's going to be very interesting to see where they have with that. One villain I thought was kind of considered, although some people I think have done fan theories about this, was Galacticus was probably going to be the next big one that they have for that. But yeah, I'm very interested in seeing who they possibly have. That is actually a really good point. Who's the next big evil that they'll have to battle, and who's the next major villain that will have basically bring these heroes together again. Now, some people would say well, we only needed this one because Thanos was the most powerful one. There are other people that they can make into these super baddies. I mean, honestly, I could also see the next big, villain for that be Dormammu. You looked at how he was created in Doctor Strange. Literally, a guy had a face as big as half of a galaxy. You mean to tell me that one person could beat that? Doctor Strange did not technically beat him. He basically outsmarted him. So, Dormammu could be the next big one as well that, comes to mind. Honestly, would it be likely? Probably not, but it's still one of those things where it's a possibility, and that's kind of what we're doing here. It's we're bringing up the possibilities. Who could be the next villain? Who could be the next superhero? Next big bad villain that's going to be, threatening the world. And some people are saying well, the Infinity Stones were the most powerful thing. Not necessarily. There are other ways of taking over without having that kind of power. We'll see what happens. We'll see what Marvel brings out for the next 8 movies that they got, because they're going to be starting to plant the seeds as to what is going to be next. So yeah, we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, awesome.
But all right, so with that being said, I think we'll wrap up this edition of the Game Changer podcast. Victory Bell, did you have anything else before we close off?
No, I think we're good.
All right, awesome. So guys, be sure to check out Victory Bell on our Facebook fan page, and also be sure to use the hashtag #NerdyVictoryBell, because I kind of want that thing to be a possibility. Even if it's just a small chance, that small chance is all I need. I want that to be a major thing. Be sure to check us out on our Facebook fan page. Give us a like there. Give us some comments. Even post in, some things you would like for us to discuss. We'd love to know your guys' opinions and feedback. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at RealFNGame. And also, guys, be sure to check us out in the many formats that we will be here to listen to our podcast. So for Victory Bell, I've been Nate the FNGreat. This has been our 3-part series for Endgame. What a way to end it. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.